Welcome everyone to The Explainer. I am so incredibly excited to share today's topic with you, mostly because we're going to explore a piece of tech that you, and honestly I, probably thought belonged firmly in the past. But it is actually staging this surprising, futuristic, and frankly mind-blowing comeback. Today we are talking about the resurrection of optical data storage. So buckle up, because what sounds like straight-up science fiction is literally happening right now in laboratories across the globe.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Look, if you're anything like most people, you've probably assumed that the optical disk is completely 100% dead. And why wouldn't you? We live in this era of lightning-fast solid-state drives, massive internal storage, and high-speed streaming everywhere. We download our games, we stream our movies, and we automatically back up all our photos to the cloud. I mean, most modern laptops and gaming consoles don't even come with disk drives anymore. The CD and the DVD just seem like these quaint relics of the 90s and early 2000s, totally killed off by the convenience of digital downloads. But behind the scenes of our digital lives, there is a massive problem brewing that our fast, modern, solid-state drives simply cannot fix.
And that problem is perfectly represented by this number right here, 80%. According to industry data, a staggering 80% of enterprise data is rarely, or honestly never, accessed after 90 days of its creation. In the tech world, we call this cold data. But here's the catch: we can't just hit delete. The business value of this data, along with all sorts of historical and legal requirements, means it has to be kept safe and readily available over super long periods of time. We're out here generating exabytes of information, and the internet, as vast as it is, can be surprisingly fragile. So keeping all this archival data on fast, expensive hard drives or SSDs that constantly draw power, it's just incredibly inefficient.
Section 1. The reality check. Tape rules. So you might be wondering, where does all this cold data actually go? When you save a file to the cloud and it just sits there for a year, well, it's probably not living on a hard drive. And right now it is definitely not on an optical disk. The modern data center actually runs on something that sounds even older. It runs on magnetic tape. Specifically, a format called LTO, or Linear Tape Open. Tape is currently the undisputed king of long-term cold data storage. Magnetic tape just completely dominates the current optical alternatives on the market today. If we look at a modern LTO-7 magnetic tape cartridge compared to Sony's Optical Disc Archive, or ODA, the numbers really speak for themselves. The tape holds 6.25 terabytes of data natively, it costs about $150, and it uses an open standard supported by multiple major IT vendors like IBM, Quantum, and Dell. The optical disc, on the other hand, it holds roughly half as much data at 3.3 terabytes, it costs more at $200, and it locks you right into a proprietary ecosystem. And when you scale this up to the data center level, the total cost of ownership becomes the ultimate deciding factor. To store just 1 petabyte of data today, you'd need roughly 300 of those Sony optical discs. That would cost you about 60 grand in media alone. But with tape, you only need 170 LTO tapes, which brings your media cost all the way down to around $25,000. Plus, tape is just faster to write to, streaming data beautifully. So right now, as things stand, optical media is losing the archiving war, badly.
Section 2. The twist. Optical strikes back.
But here's the twist. Just when optical media seemed entirely relegated to the dustbin of history and magnetic tape looked like it was going to rule the data centers forever, scientists engineered a mind-bending breakthrough, one that completely shatters the physical limits of how much data a single disk can actually hold. We are talking about nanoscale engineering that fundamentally changes the game. A research team at the University of Shanghai for Science and Technology developed a nanoscale optical disc that features a staggering capacity of 1.6 petabits. Yeah, you heard me right, petabits. Not megabits, not gigabits, not terabits.
Now, a quick math check here is crucial so we can truly grasp the scale of this technological leap. Data transmission is usually measured in bits, while storage space is measured in bytes. And since there are 8 bits in a byte, 1 petabit is exactly 1/8 the size of a petabyte. But even with that conversion, 1.6 petabits translates into a truly astronomical amount of everyday storage space. In real-world terms, that math translates to 200 terabytes of data sitting on a single disk, a disk the exact same physical size as a standard DVD. Just think about that for a second. Your average high-end Blu-ray disc has a maximum of 4 data layers and holds maybe 100 gigabytes. These scientists achieved 200 terabytes by engineering a 3D structure inside the disk with hundreds of layers, utilizing these incredibly complex femtosecond lasers to write the data. It's like a microscopic skyscraper of information.
Now sure, it requires expensive specialized lasers right now, but it proves that optical storage can blow way past the physical limits we thought existed, taking up virtually no physical space for absolute mountains of data.
Section 3. The Sci-Fi Future. 5D Optical Data Storage. Believe it or not, 200 terabytes on a plastic disk isn't even the most incredible optical technology in development right now. Enter Professor Peter Kazansky and his team at the University of Southampton. They've developed something commonly referred to as the Superman memory crystal. It's a direct nod to those indestructible crystalline archives you see in classic Superman comics and movies. But before we get too carried away with the sci-fi stuff, let's ground this in actual physics. When we say 5D, we aren't talking about alien dimensions or time travel here. The data is stored in fused quartz, which is a highly chemically stable glass. The lasers write the data by altering the size and the orientation of microscopic nanostructures within that glass. Those are your two optical dimensions. Then you have the three spatial coordinates, the x, y, and z axes, which is where these nanostructures are positioned within the 3D space of the crystal. You add them all together, and boom, you have 5D optical data storage. Now, I know the mechanics can sound a bit dense, but I just love how the University of Southampton explains it. They say it is, quote, basically a really fancy optical illusion. Depending on the exact angle you view the glass from and the magnification of the microscope you use to look at it, the nanostructure patterns look completely different. So a single disk essentially holds multiple distinct layers of micro and macro level images, all layered on top of each other in the exact same physical space. Because they are using these 5 dimensions to encode information, the physical density of the data is practically incomprehensible. A single 12-centimeter 5D glass disk, which again is just the size of a standard CD, can hold up to 360 terabytes of data. And remember, because it's fused quartz, it's not susceptible to magnetic fields, water damage, or that chemical degradation that inevitably ruins standard DVDs and magnetic tape over time.
And this is where the contrast gets absolutely wild. The very best magnetic tape on the market right now gives you an archival warranty life of about 30 years. You have to carefully store it in climate-controlled environments and regularly migrate all that data to new tapes. It's a whole process. But a 5D glass crystal? Researchers tested these things at 100 degrees Celsius, and they predict the data will remain perfectly intact at room temperature for 13.8 billion years. That is roughly the current age of the entire universe. These glass crystals can survive extreme heat, cosmic radiation. I mean, they will literally outlast humanity itself.
Section 4. Preserving Human History.
Because we now have a storage medium that holds hundreds of terabytes and lasts practically forever, the whole conversation shifts. We move from simple data center backups to something much more epic, preserving human history. This technology isn't just a lab experiment anymore. It's actively being used to create the ultimate, indestructible backups of human civilization. It's incredible to see how this builds across the years. The whole concept of using femtosecond lasers to write in transparent materials was first proposed back in 1996. By 2013, the University of Southampton team successfully demonstrated it in the lab. Just 5 years later, in 2018, the tech was robust enough to be launched into the vacuum of space. And by 2024, the storage capacity and precision had advanced so much that researchers were able to write the entire human genome onto a single crystal.
And honestly, the specific cultural artifacts they've chosen to demonstrate this tech with are just fascinating. That 2018 space launch? That was a copy of Isaac Asimov's sci-fi classic, The Foundation Trilogy, blasted into orbit inside Elon Musk's Tesla Roadster. Then in 2019, Microsoft's Project Silica successfully stored the original 1978 Superman movie on glass. The full human genome we just talked about, it was etched onto a coin-sized 5D disk and buried in the Memory of Mankind archive deep inside the world's oldest salt mine in Austria, and they even included a visual key to help future discoverers figure out how to read it. Oh, and for the gamers out there, in 2025, the classic video game Heroes of Might and Magic 3 became the very first video game ever preserved on a 5D crystal. We are literally backing up our entire culture in stone. Well, okay, in glass.
Which brings us to a wildly profound realization. The optical disc didn't die at all, it just evolved into something eternal. But it leaves us with this final provocative thought. If we are encoding the human genome, our literature, our movies, and our games onto fused quartz that will survive for 13.8 billion years, long after our data centers crumble and our magnetic tapes turn to dust, who or what will eventually be reading them? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope this sparked your curiosity, and I'll catch you next time.